Dr. Emma Mitchell stood at the bow of the research vessel Pacific Explorer *, her knuckles white against the railing as she watched history unfold in the wrong direction. The morning had started normally enough. Coffee too hot to drink, sonar readings that made no sense, and the usual banter with her research team. Now she was witnessing humanity's first contact, and it wasn't going well. The crystalline structure that had emerged from the Mariana Trench defied physics, as she understood it. Its surface caught the morning sun like a diamond cathedral, refracting light in impossible patterns across the Pacific's choppy surface. But it wasn't alone. Similar structures were surfacing worldwide, according to the frantic news reports flooding their satellite feed. Dr. Mitchell, her assistant, Tommy Chen, rushed toward her with a tablet. "You need to see this. The deep sea array. It's going crazy." Emma grabbed the tablet, her eyes widening at the readings. The mysterious signals they'd been detecting for months, the ones her colleagues had dismissed as equipment malfunctions, were now off the charts. "They've been here all along," she whispered. "Building. Preparing." A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the ship's hull. The crew froze as a massive shape rose from the waters ahead. Unlike the crystalline structures, this was clearly a vessel, if something could be both organic and geometric at the same time. Its surface rippled like liquid glass, but its edges were sharp enough to slice through reality itself. The ship's radio crackled to life with a sound that made Emma's teeth ache. After several seconds of what seemed like underwater whale songs played backward through a broken synthesizer, it resolved into English. "People of the surface, hear us. We are the Hydrics, true inheritors of Earth's oceans. Your ancestors crawled from our domain eons ago, abandoning their birthright. We have returned to reclaim what was always ours." Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the intercom, steady despite the situation. "All hands, maintain positions. Dr. Mitchell, get your team below deck. Now." Emma started to protest. They needed to record this, to study it. When she saw it, the massive U.S. Gerald R. Ford Pride of the Pacific Fleet, was approaching the Hydrix vessel. Its fighters were launching, a show of force that made Emma's stomach turn. This wasn't going to end well. The Hydrix ship emitted a pulse of blue-white energy that rippled through the water like a stone skipping in reverse. The carrier's electronics died instantly. Then, defying every law of physics Emma knew, the 1,000-foot warship began to rise from the water. "My God," Tommy breathed beside her. "They're lifting it like it's nothing." The carrier hung in the air for a moment, water cascading from its hull, before being gently, almost carefully, placed on the nearest beach, like a parent setting down a sleeping child. The message was clear. "Your weapons mean nothing to us." Emma's tablet chimed with incoming data. The sonar array was picking up movement, lots of it. Smaller Hydrix vessels were emerging everywhere, establishing a perimeter. Within hours, they would control every major shipping lane in the Pacific. "Dr. Mitchell." Captain Rodriguez appeared beside her, his face grim. "We're being ordered to fall back to territorial waters. All civilian vessels are to clear the area immediately." "Captain, we can't just leave. Our deep-sea monitors are picking up massive structural changes in the ocean floor, whatever they're building down there." "We'll have to wait," he cut her off. "But I know that look, Doctor. What aren't you telling me?" Emma hesitated, then showed him the tablet. "These signals we've been tracking. They match patterns we detected months ago, but everyone insisted they were equipment malfunctions. I think they've been here for a while, watching us. And now they're done watching." As the Pacific Explorer turned toward home, Emma watched the crystalline structures continue to rise from the depths. She thought about all the mysterious deep-sea signals they detected over the years, all the unexplained acoustic anomalies that her colleagues had dismissed. They hadn't been equipment malfunctions or statistical errors. They had been warnings, and humanity hadn't been listening. 3 weeks after first contact, Emma's underwater acoustic lab had become a ghost of its former self. The once bustling facility, built into the cliffs of Oahu's North Shore, now operated with a skeleton crew of 4. Most of her team had evacuated with their families when the Hydrix began constructing their massive crystalline cities just offshore. She hadn't slept properly in days, surviving on military-grade coffee and determination. The lab's main viewing window, a 30-foot curved glass panel looking into the Pacific's depths, now offered a view of alien architecture. Crystalline spires rose from the seafloor like frozen lightning, their surfaces pulsing with internal light. "You should see this, Doc," Jackson, her remaining senior technician, called from the sonar station. His usual jokes had vanished with the appearance of their new neighbors. "The deep mapping array is picking up something weird." Emma leaned over his shoulder, studying the acoustic readouts. They'd been mapping the Hydrix structures, trying to understand their construction. Wait, play that sequence again. Jackson rewound the sonar data. This time, Emma caught it. When their mapping pulse hit a particular crystal tower at a specific frequency, the structure had vibrated. Not the usual reflection pattern, but actual resonance. "Increase power by 20%, she ordered, her exhaustion forgotten. "Focus on that same sector." The results made her heart race. The crystal tower shuddered visibly, its perfect geometry disrupted for just a moment. "Record everything," she breathed. "And get me the frequency analysis." A deep rumble cut her off. The lab's reinforced windows darkened as something massive eclipsed the external lights. The Hydrix patrol craft, its crystalline hull refracting the dim light into ghostly patterns, drifted past their facility. These patrols had become more frequent, especially near human research installations. But Emma barely noticed. She was transfixed by the data streaming across her screens. The Hydrix structures, for all their alien perfection, had a fundamental weakness. Their crystalline architecture resonated at specific frequencies, just like a wine glass shattering at the right musical note. "My God," Jackson whispered, seeing the same patterns. "Their entire technology is based on crystalline structures. If we could find the right frequency." The lab's emergency lights flashed red. Emma's tablet erupted with warnings from their perimeter sensors. Through the main window, she watched in horror as the nearby reef, a pristine ecosystem she'd studied for years, began to change. Crystalline growths erupted from the coral, spreading like geometric frost. Fish fled in panic as their habitat transformed. A squad of Hydrix workers, their suits made of the same living crystal as their ships, directed the transformation with precise movements. "They're not just cleaning the oceans," Emma realized, her voice shaking. "They're remaking them." Dr. Mitchell, her youngest researcher, Sarah, burst into the lab. "The Navy's here. They're evacuating all civilians from the coast. They say the Hydrix are accelerating their construction and..." The floor shuddered. Through the window, Emma watched another Hydrix structure punch through the seafloor like an emerging crystal dagger. The lab's sensors screamed as their readings went off the charts. "Download everything," Emma ordered, already moving. "Jackson, wipe the main systems but keep a secured backup. Sarah, get the portable sonar equipment. We've got 10 minutes." As her team scrambled to save their research, Emma took a final look through the window. The reef she'd studied for a decade was now completely crystalline, its ancient coral formations transformed into alien geometry. But she'd found something. A weakness. Maybe humanity's only chance. Military helicopters appeared overhead as they emerged from the lab. Emma clutched the secured drive containing their discovery, her mind racing with possibilities. The Hydrix might control the oceans, but they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd assumed humanity's acoustic technology was as primitive as their ships. As she climbed into the helicopter, Emma took one last look at her lab. The Hydrix patrol craft had returned, accompanied by something larger. The last thing she saw before the helicopter banked away was her facility crumbling into the sea, destroyed by the very beings whose weakness she just discovered. They would regret that mistake. The naval submarine base in Pearl Harbor had seen better days. Most of the fleet had been forced to withdraw to shallow waters after the Hydrics disabled their deep-sea capabilities, leaving the base feeling like a boxer with both arms tied behind their back. Emma sat in a hastily converted storage room, surrounded by salvaged equipment from her lab, when Commander Jake Harrison burst through the door. "Tell me you've got something concrete, Dr. Mitchell," he said, still dripping from the rain outside. "Because we just lost contact with San Diego." Emma pulled up the frequency analysis on her rebuilt sonar array. "See this harmonic pattern?" She pointed to a peculiar wavelength. Their crystalline structures vibrate at specific frequencies, like hitting the resonant frequency of a wine glass, but on a molecular level. Harrison leaned closer, his expression intense. "And you're sure about this? Because last time we tried to hit them with conventional weapons. They turned the U.S. Ford into a beach ornament." "I know." Emma stood, pacing. "But this is different. We're not talking about brute force. We're talking about their fundamental structural weakness." A distant rumble shook dust from the ceiling. The Hydrics had been expanding their territory daily, pushing closer to the coast. They'd given humanity generous access to certain shipping lanes, like masters throwing scraps to pets. "Show me," Harrison said. 20 minutes later, they stood in a sealed underwater testing chamber. Emma had rebuilt her testing apparatus using salvaged equipment, and more than a few creative workarounds. A sample of Hydrix crystal, recovered from their destroyed lab, floated in a water-filled container. "Ready?" Emma's fingers hovered over the controls. Harrison nodded, his hand unconsciously resting on his sidearm, as if it would help against living crystal. The first test frequency hit the crystal. Nothing. The second. Nothing. On the 7th frequency, the crystal vibrated slightly. On the 8th, it shattered explosively, sending crystalline shards pinging off the chamber's reinforced walls. "That's..." Harrison stared at the flowing fragments. "Their weakness," Emma finished. "But we need more samples, more tests. We need to understand exactly how." Warning klaxons cut her off. Red emergency lights began flashing throughout the base. "Hydrix patrol craft," a voice announced over the PA. "All personnel, implement security protocols immediately." Harrison was already moving. "How did they find us?" "We're running silent. No active sonar." "The test," Emma realized, horror dawning. "They detected our frequency tests. They know." They sprinted through the base's corridors as the first impacts hit. The Hydrics weren't being gentle anymore. The entire structure shuddered as alien weapons began systematically destroying the surface facilities. "The research," Emma gasped, turning back toward the lab. Harrison grabbed her arm. "No time, but I'm guessing you kept backups." She patted her tablet. "Everything's here, but without a proper testing facility." "I know somewhere," he cut in, pulling her toward a secure doorway. "But you're not going to like it." They descended into the base's lower levels as chaos erupted above. Harrison led her through a maze of corridors to a heavy security door. Behind it sat a sleek, experimental submarine unlike anything Emma had ever seen. "The Barracuda," Harrison explained as they rushed inside. "Designed for deep-sea research and covert operations. Full acoustic suite, advanced sonar arrays." "And you're just mentioning this now?" Emma demanded as the submarine systems hummed to life. "Classified." He smirked, then turned serious. "We've got about 3 minutes before they breach this level. Can you work with this setup?" Emma surveyed the acoustic equipment. It was state-of-the-art, perhaps even better than her lab's equipment. "Yes, but we'll need to get close to their structures to run proper tests." "Then that's what we'll do." Harrison sealed the hatches as the submarine's crew rushed to their stations. "Welcome to the Resistance, Dr. Mitchell." The Barracuda slipped into its underwater launch tube as explosions rocked the base above. As they ejected into the open ocean, Emma watched Pearl Harbor's remaining structures collapse under Hydrix attack. But for the first time since the invasion, She felt something new. Hope. They had a weapon. They had a plan. Now they just had to survive long enough to use it. The Barracuda glided through the midnight waters of the Pacific like a ghost. 3 weeks of cat and mouse games with Hydrix patrols had taught them to stay deep, stay quiet, and trust nothing. Emma stared at the sonar display until her eyes burned, watching for the crystalline signatures that meant death was hunting them. "You should sleep," Harrison said quietly, appearing beside her station. The submarine's blue lighting cast shadows across his face, making the new scars from their last escape more prominent. "Can't. Dr. Rodriguez's quantum scan data just came in." She pulled up a holographic display showing ocean chemistry readings. "It's worse than we thought." The display showed a time-lapse of changes in the Pacific's chemical composition over the past month. Areas under Hydrix control were turning alien, literally. The water itself was being transformed at a molecular level. "They're not just taking our oceans," Emma explained, her voice tight. "They're terraforming them, converting Earth's waters to match their homeworld's composition. Once it's done, Earth's marine ecology dies." Harrison finished. "How long?" "At current rates, 2 months, maybe less." The submarine's comm system crackled. "Commander," their pilot called. "We're approaching the rendezvous coordinates." Harrison nodded to Emma. "Ready to meet our new friends." The friends turned out to be an unlikely collection of brilliant minds hiding in humanity's last safe haven, a converted deep-sea oil platform in international waters. The Barracuda surfaced inside its protected dock, one of the few places left where they could safely emerge. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez, the quantum physicist who'd been sending them data, met them at the airlock. His normally immaculate appearance was ragged, matching the desperate energy that filled the platform. "You brought it?" he asked without preamble. Emma patted her reinforced case. "Hydrix crystal samples, and all our frequency data. Please tell me you've got something that can help us weaponize this." The platform's main lab was a miracle of improvised science. Rescued equipment from a dozen facilities had been cobbled together into something that looked equal parts professional research station and mad scientist's lair. "Watch this," Rodriguez said, leading them to a sealed chamber. Inside, a piece of Hydrix crystal floated in suspension. "We've been analyzing their molecular structure. The crystals aren't just their technology, they're their biology. Their ships, their cities, their bodies, all variations on the same crystalline matrix. Which means one frequency could affect everything they've built," Emma realized. "Or kill them all," Harrison added grimly. Emma shot him a look. "We're not going to." A deafening alarm cut her off. Multiple Hydrix signatures detected. The platform's AI announced, "Approaching from Vector 227. "How?" Harrison demanded, already moving. "We were careful. We went dark, followed random paths." "The water," Rodriguez said, his face pale. "They're tracking us through the chemical changes in the water itself. Our human vessels leave traces they can follow." Emma grabbed the crystal samples and essential data drives, while Harrison coordinated with the platform's security team. They had minutes, maybe less. "The sonic weapon?" Harrison asked as they ran for the Barracuda. "Incomplete," Rodriguez replied, joining their escape. "But I'm coming with you. The quantum matrices I've mapped. They're the key to finding the right frequency." They reached the submarine as the first Hydrix weapons hit the platform. The entire structure shuddered, but the automated defense systems were buying them time. "Doctor," Harrison said to Rodriguez as they rushed inside, "welcome to the Resistance." The Barracuda slipped beneath the waves as the platform above them erupted in explosive chaos. Through the periscope, Emma watched humanity's last research center collapse into the sea. But they had something now. Understanding of the Hydrix at a molecular level. "How long to find the right frequency?" Harrison asked as they dove deep. Emma exchanged looks with Rodriguez. "A few days, if we're lucky. But we'll need to test it." "Which means getting close to them," Harrison nodded. "Good thing we're good at that." As they fled into the depths, Emma studied the collected data. They were being hunted by an enemy that could track their every move through the water itself. But for the first time, they weren't just running. They were hunting back. The Gulf of Mexico at dawn was a riot of colors. Oil platform flares burning orange against the purple sky, bioluminescent hydric structures glowing blue-green beneath the waves. The Barracuda hung suspended in the twilight zone, deep enough to avoid casual detection, but shallow enough to observe their target. A small hydrix outpost converting a coral reef into crystalline architecture. Final checks complete, Rodriguez reported from his jury-rigged quantum monitoring station. The modified frequency generator is online. Emma studied the readings one last time. They'd spent weeks perfecting this moment, combining her acoustic research with Rodriguez's quantum mapping. Harrison stood behind them, unusually tense. "If this works," he said quietly, "we can take back our oceans." "When this works," Emma corrected, trying to project confidence she didn't entirely feel. Initiating sequence in 3, 2, 1. The Barracuda's hull vibrated subtly as it projected a precisely calibrated acoustic pulse. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the target hydric structure began to shimmer, its perfect crystalline surface developing microscopic fractures. "It's working," Rodriguez breathed, eyes fixed on his quantum scanner. "The resonance is cascading through their molecular matrix." The hydrix outpost shattered, not just broke apart, but disintegrated into glittering dust that scattered in the ocean currents. The destruction was total, beautiful, and terrifying. Direct hit. Harrison's triumphant grin faded as he saw Emma's expression. "What's wrong?" "This is a victory." Emma pointed to her environmental scanner. "Look at the biological readings." The water around the destruction zone was filled with floating shapes, dead fish, killed instantly by the sonic pulse. The blast had shattered more than just hydrix crystals. It had ruptured the swim bladders of every fish in range. Even some dolphins, far outside the primary target zone, were showing signs of distress. "Acceptable losses," Harrison argued, though his voice held less certainty. "Compared to what the hydrix will do." "No." Emma's voice was steel. "We're supposed to be saving Earth's oceans, not destroying them ourselves. There has to be a way to tune the frequency to target only their crystalline structures." "We don't have time," Harrison countered. "Their terraforming is accelerating. In a few weeks." The Barracuda's threat detection system screamed to life. Multiple hydrix vessels were converging on their position, drawn by either the destruction of their outpost or its death throes. "Emergency dive," Harrison ordered. "Take us down to the trench." As they plunged into darkness, Emma's mind raced. The sonic weapon worked, too well. But something in the readings, something about the way the frequency propagated through the water. "Rodriguez," she called over the sound of straining hull metal, "pull up the quantum resonance patterns from the test. Focus on the harmonic overtones." "Pursuing hydrix vessels accelerating," the tactical officer reported. "They're gaining." Emma barely heard him. She was lost in the data, seeing patterns emerge. "Here, look at the secondary frequency nodes. The crystalline structures have a completely different resonance pattern than organic matter. If we can isolate that specific harmonic sequence." Incoming. The Barracuda lurched as a hydrix energy pulse grazed their hull. Warning lights flashed as seawater sprayed from a hairline crack. "We need to surface," Harrison warned. "The hull can't take this depth and damage." 2 minutes, Emma pleaded, fingers flying over her console. "I can solve this." "The whales." "What?" "Whales." She pulled up acoustic data from her old research. "They communicate across entire oceans without hurting other marine life. If we modulate our frequency to match their harmonic patterns." Another hit rocked the submarine, but Emma had it now. The solution was there in the numbers, in the way nature had already solved the problem of long-range acoustic transmission. "Got it," she breathed, then louder. "I've got it, but we need to test it somewhere less populated first." Harrison studied her face for a moment. then nodded sharply. "Helm, set course for the Arctic. Maximum speed." He turned to Emma. "You've got 3 days until we reach the test site. Make it work." As they fled north through the deep waters, Emma shared her findings with Rodriguez. They could save the oceans without destroying them. Now they just had to survive long enough to prove it. Behind them, in the darkness of the Gulf, their first test site glittered with the dust of destroyed Hydrix crystals, a warning of both the weapon's power and its terrible cost. "Boston is gone." Harrison's voice was hollow as he delivered the news. The Barracuda's crew gathered around the submarine's main display, watching footage of the devastation. They didn't just attack it. They'd reshaped the continental shelf to create a targeted tsunami. 2 million people. Just. Emma forced herself to watch. The Hydrix had transformed portions of the ocean floor into massive crystalline pistons, using them to generate precisely aimed tidal waves. The destruction was methodical, calculated, and terrifying. "They're doing it everywhere," Rodriguez reported, scrolling through incoming data. "Mumbai, Shanghai, Sydney. Every major coastal city is either under attack or already hit. This isn't random. They're systematically eliminating our ability to resist." "How long on the modified weapon?" Harrison asked, turning to Emma. She pulled up the latest test results on her tablet. "The whale song harmonics work. We can shatter their crystals without harming marine life, but the effective range is limited. We'd need thousands of devices placed strategically throughout the ocean's toe." The submarine's emergency channel crackled to life. "This is Dr. Catherine Walsh from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. If anyone's receiving this, we've discovered something critical about the Hydrix biology. Their crystalline structures resonate with cetacean communication patterns we think they're actually trying to avoid." The transmission cut off in static. "Get them back," Emma demanded, but the operator shook his head. "Can't. Their whole region just went dark." Harrison studied the tactical display, where red dots indicated Hydrix attacks spreading across global coastlines. "They're targeting research centers now. They know we're close to something." Emma's mind raced. The Woods Hole transmission confirmed her theory about whale songs, but suggested something more. She pulled up recordings from their Arctic tests, overlaying them with natural cetacean communication patterns. "Look at this," she called. Rodriguez and Harrison crowded around her station. "The frequencies that shatter their crystals, they're harmonic opposites of whale songs. That's why they've been avoiding certain migration routes. They're vulnerable to the very things they're trying to destroy," Rodriguez realized. Their terraforming isn't just about claiming territory. It's about silencing Earth's oceans. A violent impact rocked the Barracuda. Warning klaxons screamed as emergency lights bathed the control room in red. Multiple Hydrix capital ships surfacing. Tactical reported. "They're launching some kind of." The ocean itself seemed to scream. Every sonar display in the submarine exploded with readings as the Hydrix unleashed a new weapon, one that sent whales and dolphins fleeing in panic, their songs distorted into cries of pain. "They're not just attacking us," Emma realized in horror. "They're attacking everything that could hurt them. Every whale, every dolphin." Harrison grabbed the command mic. "Emergency dive. Get us under the thermocline." The Barracuda plunged deeper as chaos erupted above. Through the hull cameras, they watched massive shapes thrashing in the suddenly turbulent waters, whales driven mad by the Hydrix acoustic assault. "We can't let this happen," Emma said, her voice hard. She turned to Rodriguez. "The quantum matrices you mapped, could we use them to amplify cetacean communications, turn their own songs into weapons?" Rodriguez's fingers flew over his console. "Maybe, but we'd need help, a lot of help, and a way to coordinate with the whales themselves." "I know someone," Harrison said. All eyes turned to him. "Dr. Sarah Connor at the Naval Marine Mammal Program. If anyone can help us communicate with cetaceans, it's her. But reaching San Diego now will be a suicide mission," Emma finished. She looked around at the crew, saw the determination in their eyes. Good thing we're good at those. As the Barracuda set course for the California coast, Emma worked frantically with Rodriguez to modify their sonic weapon. Above them, the Hydrix continued their assault on Earth's oceans, unaware that their greatest weakness was about to become their doom. They had started this war by attacking humanity's coastlines. They would learn, too late, that Earth's oceans had their own defenders, ones that had been singing their defiance for millions of years before the Hydrix ever arrived. Now it was time to help them sing louder. The California coast was a crystalline fortress. Where San Diego's beaches once sprawled, Hydrix structures now reached skyward like frozen lightning strikes. The Barracuda lurked in a deep underwater canyon, waiting for their moment as Emma made final adjustments to their modified weapon. Dr. Connor's signal confirmed. The communications officer reported. Her team is in position with the marine mammal pod. Emma looked at the readouts from the quantum-enhanced Sonar array. They had one shot at this. After 3 days of preparation, coordinating with Connor's cetacean research team and the remnants of the world's navies, everything hinged on the next few minutes. Review the sequence, Harrison ordered, his voice tight with tension. Phase 1. Emma began. Dr. Connor's team uses their trained dolphins to plant the sonic resonators at key points around the Hydrix command structure. Phase 2. We activate our modified frequency generator, tuned to amplify natural whale songs. Phase 3. She took a deep breath. We pray it works. Rodriguez spoke up from his station. Quantum matrices are aligned. If this works, the amplified cetacean frequencies should cascade through their entire crystalline network. And if it doesn't, Harrison added grimly, we've just revealed our last surviving marine research team to the enemy. The waiting was agony. Through the Barracuda's external cameras, they watched Connor's dolphins darting through the crystal forest, placing devices smaller than footballs at precisely calculated points. Each one contained technology that had cost lives to develop. Last resonator in position. Connor's voice crackled over the secure channel. My team is clearing the area. Good luck. Emma's fingers hovered over the activation sequence. Initiating in 3, 2. Multiple Hydrix signatures. Tactical suddenly shouted. They're rising from the seafloor. Through the cameras, they watched in horror as massive crystalline shapes emerged from hidden chambers. The Hydrix had known they were coming. Abort, Harrison ordered. Get Connor's team out. No time, Emma cut him off. She hit the activation sequence. Everyone brace. The ocean came alive with sound. The resonators activated in sequence, creating a complex harmonic web. For a terrible moment, nothing happened. Then they heard it, deep, haunting calls echoing through the water. Whales, thousands of them, had answered their signal. My God, Rodriguez breathed, staring at his quantum readings. The frequencies are perfectly aligned. The whales are naturally generating exactly the harmonic patterns we calculated. The nearest Hydrix structure began to vibrate. Not violently, but with a deep musical resonance that spoke of immense power barely contained. Cracks appeared in its crystalline surface, spreading like frost across glass. Direct hit on their command center. Tactical reported, but they're responding. Some kind of countermeasure. The Hydrix unleashed their own sonic weapon, a shrieking crystalline discord that made the Barracuda's hull groan. Emergency lights flashed as hairline cracks appeared in the reinforced viewport. Hull breach in Section 4. Engineering called. We can't take much more of this. But Emma wasn't listening. She was transfixed by her readings. The whales, they're adapting their songs, changing frequency to match the Hydrix attacks. They're learning. The ocean became a battlefield of sound. Hydrix crystal screamed against whale song. Discord against harmony. The Barracuda shuddered as competing sonic waves battered its hull. We need to surface, Harrison said. The pressure hull is failing. Wait. Emma's fingers flew across her console. The resonance pattern. if we can sync our technology with their songs exactly. She made one final adjustment. The Barracuda's sonic array hummed to life, adding its voice to the whale song. The effect was instantaneous. The Hydric's discord faltered, overwhelmed by the combined power of nature and human technology. Their structures are failing. Rodriguez shouted over the groaning hull. The resonance is spreading through their entire network. Through the cracking viewport, they watched the impossible. The mighty Hydric's command center, pride of their invasion force, began to sing itself apart. Its crystalline surface rang like a million breaking glasses, each note perfectly aligned with the whale song that had doomed it. They had done it. They had found the perfect frequency. But as seawater began spraying from new cracks in the hull, Emma realized their victory might have come at the cost of their own survival. The Barracuda was coming apart around them, and they were still deep in enemy territory. Hull breach in sections 4 through 7. The damage control officer's voice barely carried over the screech of tearing metal. We're losing pressure containment. Emma worked frantically at her station as ice-cold seawater sprayed from widening cracks in the Barracuda's hull. The submarine groaned like a dying whale, its structure compromised by the sonic battle raging outside. But through the failing viewport, she could see their success. The massive Hydric's command center dissolving into crystalline dust, its perfect geometries undone by Earth's own songs. The automated network is offline, Rodriguez reported, fighting to keep his balance as the submarine listed. We need manual activation for the final frequency cascade. Harrison appeared at Emma's station, gripping the console for support. How long? 3 minutes to recalibrate the quantum harmonics. But the control room. She glanced at the flooding compartment ahead. Someone has to physically reach the main sonic array controls. No. Harrison's voice was firm. You're not. Already going. Emma was moving, pulling herself through the tilting corridor. Get the crew to the escape pods. I'll finish this. Water rushed around her legs as she fought her way forward. Behind her, she heard Harrison ordering the evacuation, his voice steady despite everything. The Barracuda's hull creaked ominously as she reached the flooded control room. The main console still glowed, barely above the rising water. Emma's fingers flew across its surface, entering the final calibrations. Outside, whale songs still reverberated through the ocean, holding the remaining Hydric structures in its destructive harmony. Emma, Harrison's voice crackled through her radio. The hull's about to collapse. You need tow. Almost done. She cut him off, watching the calibration sequence. The whales are synchronized. Just need to match the resonance exactly. A massive impact rocked the submarine. Through the cracking viewport, she saw it. A wounded Hydric's vessel, its crystalline surface fracturing, making one final attack run. 30 seconds, she reported, water now at her chest. The console sparked and sputtered as she entered the last commands. Get everyone clear. We're not leaving without. Yes, you are. Emma's voice was steel as she hit the final sequence. Because I just armed the escape pod ejection system. You've got 10 seconds before it launches automatically. She heard Harrison curse, then, we'll send recovery teams. I know. Emma managed a smile as the water reached her shoulders. Been an honor, Commander. The escape pods launched with a distant thud. Emma turned back to her work as the console flickered, threatening to fail before the sequence completed. The water was at her neck now, but she could see her victory through the viewport. The final frequency cascade began, starting with the Barracuda's sonic array, amplified by the quantum harmonics Rodriguez had mapped, carried on the songs of Earth's great whales. A wave of perfect resonance spread through the ocean. Every Hydric structure it touched began to sing, adding its death song to the symphony. The Barracuda's viewport finally shattered. As freezing water rushed in, Emma saw the ocean change. Hydric's crystals dissolved like sugar in hot tea, their alien geometries surrendering to Earth's natural rhythms. The water itself seemed to ripple as their terraforming reversed, unchanged ocean rushing in to reclaim converted zones. Her last thought, before the emergency flotation system in her suit pulled her clear of the dying submarine, was that it was beautiful. Hours later, a rescue ship pulled her from the Pacific. She woke in the medical bay to find Harrison and Rodriguez waiting, their expressions a mix of relief and excitement. "Did it?" Her voice was rough. "Work?" Rodriguez grinned. "Better than we imagined." The resonance spread through their entire network. Every Hydrix structure on Earth, every ship, every outpost, all gone. The whales? She managed. Singing victory songs. Harrison said softly, "The entire Pacific cetacean population is celebrating. And we're picking up new frequencies from the deep ocean, songs we've never heard before. Like they're telling their own story of the war." 1 week later, Emma stood on the restored beach of San Diego, watching the sun set over a free ocean. Where Hadrix crystals had reached for the sky, natural waves now rolled in. A pod of dolphins played in the surf, their clicks and whistles carrying clearly through the evening air. She smiled, remembering the Hydrix's first message. They had called humanity surface dwellers who had abandoned their birthright. They had been wrong. Earth's oceans had never been abandoned. They had always been protected, by humans and whales together, whether they knew it or not. Now they knew, and they would never forget.